Scott coming to you live today from Blakfacts Central. And today we're going to be telling the story of Pharaoh Akhenaten of ancient Egypt. And here we see an image of the Pharaoh, one of the greatest Egyptian pharaohs of all time. There you go. You can see him right there. And that is actually done from a bas relief that was made of Pharaoh Akhenaten. So that's actually how he looked. People have had a lot of this. There's been a lot of discussions around, did he really look this way? Was he deformed in some kind of way, disabled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All a bunch of ridiculous notions designed to cause confusion because nobody wanted to admit that he was a black man. So, as I said here, matter of fact, he was the Egyptian pharaoh of 1350 BC, and he was the first to enunciate the theory of one God, in other words, monotheism. And he wrote many beautiful and powerful poems. Although he was depicted as white in plays built around him, his features were definitely, quote unquote, Negroid, as seen in this sketch from a portrait of him. And I'll show you the picture one more time over here so you can see how they drew him. And if you see the actual photographs of the bas relief, yeah, he looks just like you see here in the picture. Okay. So Pharaoh Akhenaten, 1350 BC, his queen, or the empress, because he was an emperor actually, was Nefertiti. So it was Akhenaten and Nefertiti. And they had a number of children, Akhenes and Pa-Amun, and there were some other ones whose names I don't recall exactly, but they're very similar names. And they are one of the most written about, talked about, well-remembered set of rulers of all time, from 1350 BC all the way through to the present. So if you add that up, we're talking about well over 3,000 years, almost 4,000 years. They are still being remembered and written about. New books, new movies, new documentaries are still coming out on them because they were a power couple. We think President Obama and Michelle Obama were a power couple. Well, Akhenaten and Nefertiti were the power couples to end all power couples, more so than any of the other queens of anywhere else that you could think of. I won't even mention any names because it doesn't even do to mention them. Okay, not very mentionable. Now, on this same page, I'm gonna do a whole page this time. On this same page here, we've got the first United States stamp to honor a Negro was that of Booker T. Washington on April 4, excuse me, 1940. It was for 10 cents. He was also honored by a 50-cent coin in May of 1946. 50-cent coin, May 1946. That was a coin that was in circulation. It wasn't a commemorative coin. This was an actual real coin that you could use to purchase whatever it was that you wanted to purchase, like Sacagawea. Okay, we're familiar. Some of us are familiar with the Sacagawea, the gold coins you get at the post office when you put your money in the machine. It gives you change back. If it has to give you any change back in dollars, it's going to give them back to you in these gold coins that have a Native American woman on it, Sacagawea. So it was that kind of a coin. And the coin was designed by a black man by the name of Isaac Hathaway. So black on black, in black. There you go. You see him over here on the side. It's not a very good rendition, but you can see a picture of him over here of the rendition that J.A. Rogers, illustrator, did at that time. And then, now that one is relevant because we've been talking about money, and we've been talking about whether or not Harriet Tubman should be on a coin or not. We talked about a black man should go on a coin first or should go on the money first. Case already happened. We had a number of black men on the paper money. We even had a number of black men on the coins, because Booker T. Washington is not the only one. And we've had a bunch of black folks on stamps. So I'm just saying, why not Harriet Tubman at this point? You might as well. Okay. At least we can say she was a defender of the race. She was not going to let anything go down where nobody ever stood up in total defiance of an absolute systematic method of enslaving an entire group of people. Systematic. It wasn't just one person. It wasn't another person. It wasn't one state or another state. This was implemented, instituted, backed up by, insured by the federal government. So this was a system. Slavery is a system, and we need to understand that it's a system, not just some individuals. Okay, it wasn't just individuals. It was a whole system that was set up, and the United States is built on the backs. Is built on that particular system. That was how the system was devised in the first place. Now, the last one here is also relevant. At this time, we're dealing with this coronavirus, this whole pandemic thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people are very focused on what's happening with the pandemic. It is something to be aware of. We should be aware of what's going on with it. But it is not something that should tie up all of our mental capabilities that we should have our entire focus on. We need to keep our eye on the sparrow. And CV, coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, you call it whatever you want. It's not something we need to be totally focused on 24/11 or 24/7, excuse me, 24/7. I'm thinking 7-Eleven. All right. Don't need to be focused on that entirely all day, every single day. There's other things happening in the world. And if there's not other things happening in the world, we need to make something happen. Okay? Just like Martin R. Delaney said. He said, make a demand, create an event. Make a demand, create an event. Now, Martin R. Delaney was from right here in Ohio. He was a colonel in during the Civil War. So he's one of the one black person who was put in charge of other black men on a battlefield. Very unusual. Okay, very unusual. I mean, just the fact that he was an officer, even though he was a medical officer, he wasn't actually necessarily leading battles, etc., but he was a medical officer. But at that point, having any black officers at all was a miraculous thing, because it meant he would be over other people, and particularly he'd be over white folks too. Okay, if it came down to it. But Martin R. Delaney, he lived here in Ohio, and he was also a proponent of what we now call black nationalism, which is black folks doing for self. So that little statement I just quoted, make a demand, create an event. What he's really talking about there is the same as what Garvey talked about, do for self. Stop being focused on what other people want us to focus on. Focus on our needs, what we need to be focused on right now, what we can do for ourselves. What can we do for ourselves? So enough of that. Last point. Oh, so I'm getting to the point here about these doctors. And a lot of people have been saying a lot of things about the virus, that black people are immune to it, so on and so forth. Maybe we are, maybe we're not, but it apparently seems as though we're not, because black people are dying like flies from this particular virus. So if we're immune, I don't know what's happening with all these black folks out here that are dropping like flies. Something ain't right. That's a theory, but it hasn't been proven. Does melanin make us immune to the virus? I don't think so. Viruses don't even work that way. It's got nothing to do with melanin. So let's move past that. Back to the doctors. For myself, I do not go to doctors. I don't go to any doctors. I don't go to the dentist. I don't deal with any of them because I consider the dentist to be a menace, just like dentist the menace. Dentist the menace. Right. That's how I look at them, because you can die in the dentist chair when you going in there and they're going to drug you up. They're going to put you to sleep. Putting you to sleep is one step away from not being here at all, because there's no guarantee that you're going to wake up from that sleep that they put you in. You could go into the deep sleep, so to speak. So I don't really trust them. Why? Same reason we got here on this page right here. Last article on here is the native Australians. They call them the black fellas. Okay, that'll give you an idea what they look like. A black people were killed off by the whites who poured poison in their water holes. Now, this very same methodology of eradicating black folks or taking over our land was also another good example of it. At least I'm sure it happened more than once, but another good example of it comes from the great state of California, where we had Allensworth, California, named after Allen Allensworth, who was also a officer during the Civil War. And Allen Allensworth formed a black town in California. Well, some people around there didn't particularly like the fact that these black folks had their own town, so they looked for a way to get rid of them. What was their preferred method to get rid of them? Anything they could think of, like, say, poison in their water hole. So they told the people that the water was poison and that they needed to move. Otherwise, they were all going to die from poisoned water. But what really happened is the black folks said they weren't moving. They said, you know what? If the water's poison and we got to die, just bury me right here, Wounded Knee. Just bury me right here. That's it. We're done. And guess what? They didn't die. So obviously the water was not poisoned. So this is merely a ploy designed to confuse and confound. So instead of being confused or confound, they just let it roll those dice. But in this case, the water holes actually were poisoned in Australia. Those on the nearby island of Tasmania, the Tasmanians. You heard of the Tasmanian devil, that little cartoon character they got running around looking like some kind of a devil. Okay, we'll say it like that. Were killed off entirely. In other words, they committed total annihilation. They committed total genocide on the black people of Tasmania. And that's why we don't have any more Tasmanians, period, dot. They do not exist. Australia began as a convict colony, just like the United States of America, in 1788, as a result of American independence. The U.S., then free, okay, at that time, when the U.S. became free, the United States government refused to accept any more English convicts. They said, we don't want any more of them here. They did what's happening right now. They put up restrictions and they said, no, we're not taking any more. They closed the border. In this case, it was the coastal areas, because you couldn't fly. The only way you could come in is on a boat. So they closed off the seaports. No more convicts could come in. So that's when they created a new penal colony they called Australia, named after the country of Austria in Germany. Why they named it after Austria, I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. Require further research. But in the meanwhile, this is what happened in Australia, and you got a picture of it down here at the bottom of the page. You can see it pretty well right there. This is how this is an artist depiction, okay? It's not from a photograph necessarily or anything, but there are photographs of these black fellas, these Australians in chains, looking like black folks from here. looking like they've been enslaved. So this history of slavery, the history of abuse, the history of the persecution of a race by another race is something that is not relegated just to the shores of North America. It happened in other places too. Australia is a good example. Learn about the history of Australia. Learn about Tasmania. Learn about Truganini. Y'all should know about Truganini, especially you females out there, because it has to do with women's history. When they do Women's History Month, last month was Women's History Month, bet you they didn't bring up Truganini, because she was the last of the Tasmanians, was Truganini, female, what they call black fella, okay, for obvious reasons. And then also along with that is the history of South Africa and the apartheid system in South Africa, which that history is very similar to what happened in other parts of Africa as well, but is particularly telling because just like Australia was created because of what happened in the US, South Africa used to be called the Union of South Africa, which means that the initials come out to be USA. And they had a system of segregation there they called apartheid. Blacks only lived here, whites only lived there. They took all the land from the Africans and gave us the scrub lands. In other words, these the places that we lived were like Native American or Indian reservations. So they took their cues from the USA. So whatever happens here today, tomorrow, it'll be happening on another shore. That's why it's so important what we do here, right now, today. So make good use of your time because you don't know how much time you have left. Your number could get pulled at any given minute. So make your mark, do your thing. Next time I see you, I'll probably be starting to sing because we're doing this at noon and we do something at 9. Noon and 9. That's how we're going to try to make life really fine. For now, we're on the inside. We're getting ready to go outside. We found our seeds. I knew I had them around here somewhere. I just had to pull them up. So we're going to be planting some collards. We're going to be planting some kale. And I ain't talking about no red Russian kale. I ain't talking about no white kale. I'm talking about some black kale. Some lacinato, black kale, dinosaur kale. I mean, that's some good eating. So look for videos on that in our other group, Health is the Wealth. Make sure to subscribe. The subscribe button is right below. Click that button. If you're on Facebook watching this, make sure to go ahead and like us. Okay. Well, if we're in a group, just request to be a member. Okay, because we're going to be in a group. We're posting this up in the Center of Pan-African Culture. That's what we're doing our thing. Noon and 9. Noon for the adults, the women, Wisdom of Doc Ock. And 9 o'clock, we do Doc Ock's Favorite Stories. That's right. I said Flavo-Right. Flavo-Right. Otherwise known as Favorite. You can say Favorite or Flavo-Right. But guess what? I got the copyright. So you're not allowed to use that word. You know it, but don't say it. I'm the only one allowed to say that. And above and beyond, make sure to go ahead and invite your friends, your family. We're going to be doing watch parties too. I'm still working on that, trying to get everything put in place because I'm developing a whole new system. You're seeing something being developed in real time. We're operating in real time, not the fake time, not some other time. This ain't Star Trek, okay? We're operating in real time. So you're seeing something develop right before your eyes. Next time, I want to see what you develop. You develop something and we'll join you and watch and see what you come up with too. Because everybody has something to contribute. We all need to be on our jobs. And I don't mean the one that pays you from 9 to 5. We need to be on our real jobs. As my grandma said, we need to be on our real jobs. When are we going to get up off our, you know what I mean, and do what we need to do? When are we going to get up off of it? So get up off of that thing. Next time I see you, I'll start to sing. Peace out now. end stream there.